Hello, everyone, and welcome into today's session, The People Side of Project Success, Communication Skills That Prevent Failure, presented by our experts from TRACOM, Jason Kiesau and Dr. Casey Mulqueen. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting and moderating today's session. We are on Zoom for today's session, and we'll be emailing you a copy of this recording after the webinar. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for a short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 and TRACOM are so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you both.
All right. Thanks for being here, everyone. We're excited to spend the next 30 minutes with you. Let's make sure the chat is working right now. If you would in the chat, let us know where you are logging in from. Where are you logging in from? I'm in beautiful Des Moines, Iowa. Dr. Mulqueen.
I'm in Denver, Colorado.
Where is everybody from? We will be using the chat periodically throughout our time. Casey and I were just talking about the heat streak that is going on in both Des Moines and Denver. So interested to hear if that's going on throughout other places as well. So as you're putting those in the chat, I will start with some of the introduction with what we're going to be talking about. Um, with everything we're trying to accomplish in our day to day within our roles and in workplaces, we have people dynamics and we have process dynamics, right? And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is for those of you out there who are doing the work around project management and creating the process and the structure on getting things done. We also want to highlight how important it is, the people side of it is in there, and actually show how there's a really nice alignment between the two efforts and how we can bring them together to be able to have the greatest outcomes. So process creates structure, people determine success. For those of you who might be familiar with Educate 360, we do a lot of work in the project management space, 20 years experience. We're doing in-person and virtual trainings often. And our goal is to help you with your project management training, help your project managers and their teams succeed. And when it comes to the social intelligence work, what TRACOM does, we look at this as a multiplier for everything you're looking to do. And this comes down to how we, from communication to emotional intelligence to how we adapt to the things we are looking to do every single day. So be thinking to yourself here. I understand we're having some challenges with the chat. Be thinking to yourself as far as like how intentional is your organization in providing project management training? There's some organizations that you may be closer to a 10 out of 10, and there's some organizations maybe you haven't even scratched the surface, okay? So what we're going to be presenting to you in the spirit of your structure around project management, it's laying the opportunity to accompany what you're already doing, okay? What you're already doing with the project management space. So a lot of organizations are currently investing in project management, and it's all about that improving execution. It creates common language, the framework, the process. We want to take that a step further, and we want to focus on the things around the social intelligence, the communication, the building alignment. What does it mean when conflict comes up? And when it's all good, it's all good. But what happens when pressure builds? What happens when there is stress? How are we working together to execute those projects. And what we've learned through industry experts is that not paying attention to the people stuff has a cost. Project Management Institute highlights that poor communication contributes to 30% of project failures. That should get anybody's attention when it comes to efficiency and impacting the bottom line here. Also, organizations with highly effective communication 5 times more likely to be high performing. That's when we're talking about this being a multiplier, and then McKinsey and Company validate that as well. So it's worth looking at. So when we're talking about building the foundation, if you're currently doing project management training, you're focused on the scope, the schedule, the cost, the risk, being agile, trying to create some predictability with the framework through those tools and methodologies. Okay. But what we have found is the people side of it, if without giving attention to that, may slow this down, hold this back, impact what you're looking to accomplish. So what we have learned is new project managers often think that people communicate clearly. And if you've done the work with the project management and you've given the resources, you may say to yourself, they have everything they need right now to be successful. What we have learned is that's not entirely the case. That's more of an assumption that people communicate clearly. The reality is people have different styles, they have different priorities, they have different things that stress them out, and that will affect the clarity of communication. Another assumption that new project managers think is how quickly people align. And again, if you're doing the work to provide predictive frameworks and the tools and methodologies, you may think in yourself alignment, alignment, alignment. But the reality is, just because we say it doesn't mean it's happening. People are different. They have different priorities. They interpret information differently. Their desire for predictability may be a little different, and that could impact a lot of how these things work. So the people alignment assumption is a risk. And then the third thing here is around conflict. And the idea is if you have the predictable frameworks and people are agile and you provide them the resources, there should be less conflict, and there should be, but human nature is still going to play a role in the experience around this. And when you come down to it, when people are uncomfortable, some people withdraw and avoid, and other people escalate it. Neither mechanism for handling conflict will result in the results you want. Casey, anything to add to this when you're thinking about the work we do, the assumptions people make, the lack of understanding people and behavior?
Yeah, I think it becomes especially poignant when people are feeling stressed out, which happens a lot when you're on a kind of a fast-paced project and you've got a project manager who's managing things, and people will go into their backup behaviors. So more telling people, like driving and expressive people, can be very blunt in their messages to others. They're trying to move things forward. An analytical style person might avoid the situation altogether if they're feeling stressed out. They're feeling pressure from not only that project, but other projects they're working on, and they'll just disengage entirely and not respond at all. And so that's kind of the genesis of a lot of the problems, is just those fundamental communication differences that the different styles have, and especially how they show up when people are feeling stressed.
Yeah,
And I
and while go ahead, sorry.
just going to say, it looks like we got our chat function working again. So thanks everybody for
Yeah,
weighing in about where you're from.
yeah. So on the chat, give us an idea real quick as we're talking about project management training. On a scale of 1 to 10, how intentional is your organization with project management training? Megan says 5. We have a 5. We have a 3, a 6, a 1. Casey, I don't know if any of these numbers are particularly surprising. All right, let's keep going. So, why do people struggle with communication and alignment? I'm a firm believer that most of the challenges we have with other people is that we don't understand behavior. We don't understand our behavior and we don't understand others' behavior. And that's kind of where we're getting into some of the nuances here around people behavior. So, why do people struggle? We assume everybody communicates like we do. And this may be a lack of self awareness type thing, but it's also just a lack of understanding the reality of other people. The research shows that most people you work with prefer to work and communicate differently than you do. We make the assumption that we know how we come across to others. Our research suggests differently. Each of us has a self-perception bias, and what that means is how we think we show up may not be 100% accurate to how others experience us. We believe that we know how effectively we communicate with others. And again, the work we do suggests that there's a bigger gap there. Casey, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the message here is that it's very common. Like you said, we all have a self-perception bias, so we don't see ourselves quite the way other people see us. And also on top of that, we're unaware of that bias in our own thinking style. So we just don't recognize that it's happening. So just understanding that goes a long way towards helping that it's common, it's normal, part of the human condition.
Yeah. So overcoming the gap, and this is where TRACOM comes in. Number one, people are more predictable than we realize. So part of what we do with TRACOM and specifically social style we're going to get into is we're teaching people about their predictable patterns and we're teaching people about others' predictable patterns, which is the to key to success in what we call versatility. What the research shows is that there's four key patterns that we call social styles that we will get into in a moment. The concept of versatility is if we are willing to observe other people and we're curious about their pattern, we're able to identify that. This is going to tell us how to work and communicate with people. And it's really about adapting to other people's preferences to increase your effectiveness with them. So the program that TRACOM developed 60 years ago is social style and versatility. Okay. It's a behavioral and communication framework that's all about helping you understand yourself, but more importantly, understanding others so you know how to adapt. Taking those ideas separately for a moment, social style itself is 100% about behavior. Each of us has a social style. The people we work with has a social style. It's 100% about behavior. That we're not talking about personality, we're not measuring personality. We're focused 100% on behavior. And that second item there, versatility, is the why we do it. Versatility is your return on investment for investing in training like social style. Versatility is the ability to modify our behavior to adjust to other people in real life situations to be more effective. A lot of programs talk about it's good to adapt. Social style is the only program on the planet that measures and teaches versatility. And what it does is that it creates a shared language that spans across your organization, all your project management teams, to help them understand themselves and understand each other. So let's take a look at the model and how this directly relates to project management. So you'll see the model on the screen here. We have a scale left to right that we refer to as assertiveness. Ask assertive on the left, tell assertive to the right. And top to bottom, you can see what we call dimensions of behavior or scales of behavior from controlled to emoting. What this means is some people are more controlled with their emotions, just meaning they don't show as much emotion. And as you go down the scale to emoting, these people show more emotion. Okay. So these are the different dimensions of behavior that we help learners understand so that they can understand themselves, understand each other. If we go back to the assertiveness scale, people that tend to be more ask assertive tend to they tend to talk less, they tend to observe more, they tend to ask more questions, they're a little more cautious with risk. And as we go across the scale to people that tend to be more tell-assertive, they tend to, from a behavior perspective, tend to operate at a faster pace. They're more focused on getting things done quicker. They're more comfortable with a lack of predictability and some chaos, knowing that they'll likely make mistakes and figure it out as they go. They are more comfortable with risk. And these dimensions of behavior result in 4 social styles. So you have in the top right corner, you have driving styles that tend to be more tell-assertive, while also more controlled with how they show emotion. Expressive styles, bottom right corner, like the driving style, they tend to be more tell-assertive. They want to get things moving, get the job done, but they tend to show more emotion in the process, and tend to be a little more relational in the process. Bottom left-hand corner, we have an amiable style. They are also emoting and relational, but they're less interested in just getting things moving to get it done quickly. They're more interested in the predictability, the context, the understanding, the harmony of a situation. And then in the top left-hand corner, you have analytical styles that tend to be more ask assertive and they're more controlled with their emotions. They're more interested in the accuracy of the data. They're more interested in not making a mistake. Okay. So before we go any further with this, if you had to make your best guess right now on what you think your social style is most of the time, which is your dominant pattern of behavior most of the time, what do you think your social style is? Share with us in the chat.
Jackie's driving, Gunther analytical, definitely driving from Pearl. Megan's
Megan,
between
I think
driving and
that's super
expressive.
productive as well, somewhere in between.
Yeah. So definitely all styles represented here.
Yeah. So Megan, to your question, is it possible to be both? Both the drive-in and expressive style, they both share tell-assertive. Okay, so you're likely feeling some tell-assertive. There seems to be the differentiator is around more task orientation to people orientation. So people that tend to be more expressive may have a greater preoccupation with relationship dynamics, where the driving style, it's for better or worse, they don't have the preoccupation or as much concern on that. So I would put it back on you to say, are you concerned with people dynamics? Do they drive and influence some of your decisions and how you work, or is it easy to kind of ignore and dismiss those and just move on? That's as an expressive style, I wish there were days I could just ignore the people dynamics and just move on. So, Casey, share the nuance around these are dominant patterns. We're not saying this is who you are all of the time.
Right. I think about it as a comfort zone. So Deanna and some other people put in there some questions around this, but we behave in a certain way most of the time. But I, as an analytical style person, some of the times I can act very driving, some of the times I can even act expressive and amiable, but I have a comfort zone of where I go back to most of the time. And so that puts me into that analytical quadrant, and that is my social style. So we're not locked into it. We can behave in all other areas, but there's a comfort zone. And also some of these questions I think are around versatility too, where somebody was saying, I have a thinking way. I tend to overthink, but behaviorally, I'm more emotional or I show my emotions more often. That's completely normal. Again, it's the difference between how you perceive yourself and maybe your thinking style and what happens there and how you come across behaviorally.
Yeah. So how does this show up? How does this show up in the workplace, and how does this show up specific to project management? See if you can relate to some of these. So kind of we'll go around to each of the styles with the situation and the impact. First, with the driving style, you have a team member that pushes for immediate decisions and may become frustrated with too many questions, and they dismiss concerns as overthinking. That could be that could be a risk of a driving style that's not really paying attention to their behavior and being versatile. And there's consequences to that, right? The team may disengage, mistakes may be made. So for those of you who are driving styles, these are the types of things you're going to want to pay attention to. How does your behavior come across? What is the experience that other people have? And knowing the risk, what can you do to modify how you're working and communicating to get better results? That's that versatility piece. So I'll bring the other ones up. We have the expressive style. Expressive styles tend to be creative. They can get excited about different things, easily jump between different ideas and concepts. And there are consequences to that. Amiable styles value harmony and can be conflict avoidant. So when it comes to making decisions and driving project plans moving forward, that stuff is going to play a role for the amiable style, for better or worse. Analytical styles tend to be data driven. They don't want to make mistakes. Though we need that, if we're not aware of it, there could be consequences to that as well. So as you're looking at these four scenarios, whether you're in a formal project management team or initiative, or you're just a human being working with other human beings, you have likely experienced some of these things along your journey. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to help you make it make sense. Um, it's something I think we take for granted when there are mechanisms out there such as social style to help us learn about ourselves, learn about others, and what we can actually do in a safe and productive manner. So walking through a real life scenario here, driving a decision under pressure, 2 weeks before a major milestone, a key feature is at risk. The team is split on whether to move forward, delay, or adjust the scope. Project manager needs to make a darn decision today. So in this scenario, the project manager is an expressive style. And an expressive style's natural style, they're going to talk through options, they're going to be encouraging with open discussion, and they're going to have some energy and momentum. At the same time, there are some risks with the expressive style nature that you may not be aware of that could actually hurt what you're trying to do in getting that clear decision today. Okay. The name of the game is whether the project manager is expressive or driving or amiable analytical. It really comes down to adapting to each person to drive a decision. And that's that versatility piece we talked about. Adapting to each person to drive a decision is versatility. So if this expressive style is versatile, which is the goal of everything we're talking about, they're not standing in their corner and expecting everyone to adapt to them. They're open and curious to observe others' behavior, to understand the behavior and the needs of others. So if they are working with the driving style, here's what they need to do and why. Be direct. be clear, be concise. Why? Because the driving style has a need for results. They tend to move faster. And they may not give you a ton of time to explain a bunch of stuff. What happens when you're working with another expressive style? There's likely going to be a lot of words used, ideas being shared, possibly emotions being expressed. How do you acknowledge the stuff and get back on track? Which could be a risk for two expressives working with each other. Working with an amiable style is going to be different. An amiable style might be hesitant to share their ideas and be open. So how do you help them feel comfortable in getting their thoughts and concerns so they feel heard, but you can get what they're saying and make a darn decision? And the analytical style, it's different than the other three. In each of these styles, I call them cheat codes. If you want to be versatile with the driving style, focus on the results. If you want to be versatile with an expressive style, partner and show interest. Don't dismiss. Don't move on without exploring with them. Amiable styles need you to connect and be supportive. And analytical styles need you to respect their process, which is not making uninformed, quick decisions. And the bottom line with this is just not differences in opinion, it's differences in communication and how people, what kind of communication people need to confidently move forward. Casey, you're seeing this stuff all the time. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think you summarized it really well, and it's really fairly straightforward if you think about it. So once you understand somebody's style, Jason's been talking about the sponsor. If the sponsor's driving and the sponsor is trying to go in their backup behavior because they're feeling stressed, they need to get things done. You just simply recognize that and bring them back by saying you recognize that. Like, hey, Jason, I get it. You know, I understand you've got a deadline. We need to meet this. I'm here to support that. There's just a couple things maybe that we can discuss before we move on, then we can make a better, more informed decision. So it's really just small adjustments to your behavior. Once you understand somebody's social style, you recognize their need and you can help them meet that need in the moment. And that will help you to move forward more productively.
Yeah, and the reality is you're going to have different people in different roles with different styles. One size fits all project management isn't going to get the job done. One size fits all leadership isn't going to get the job done. Versatility is a difference maker with that. And in order to be versatile, you have to understand yourself and understand others. And that's really the purpose of social style, to help us understand our behavior, others' behavior, how to work and communicate in alignment with those needs, as Casey just said. So one of the resources you are going to be getting is you're going to be in a link to this managerial success study. And I'll just bring some of the figures up on the screen right here. But it's got all the information you need to understand why versatility is absolutely critical for success with the projects you're managing, and I would argue anything else you're trying to do in the workplace. So you're going to be getting this. You've got this in a link. You may be getting this in an email afterwards as well. If you're currently working with somebody from Educate 360 and you would like more information about this, please reach out to your account managers, your account executives that you're working with, and we will get you all the information you need. And if you're new to Educate 360 and TRACOM group, feel free to engage with Casey or I, or reply to an email that you receive if you would like more information with this. Casey, anything of importance to close on? I know we'll stick around for some questions if people have them.
Yeah, no. I just want to say thank you as a quick overview of a lot of material here. So there's a lot more to learn. Hopefully, this piqued your interest, and I thank you all for your participation.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. We did have one question, and I know Dr. Casey answered it, but I did want to highlight the answer. How do you balance speaking of style traits like creative, supportive, etc., with the focus on behavior, not personality? And Dr. Casey followed up with the behavior is that people will throw out ideas and want to explore ideas. Another person will actively support others' comments and ideas. This is the behavior behind the traits we discuss. Really insightful stuff. So thank you so much for answering that, Dr. Casey. And thank you to our awesome attendees today. A lot of engagement, a lot of really fantastic feedback. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you both for leading the presentation. This was fantastic.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
Mario.
Alrighty, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your day and week, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.